Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, as you all know that Pakistan is emitting only 0.8% of the carbon emissions. Yet Pakistan is the most vulnerable country to the climate change. Pakistan's vulnerability is because of the developed world unjust development, and unfortunately this is not justified to the developing world. Unfortunately, in Pakistan lies in a region where some of the neighboring countries have a rapid industrialization without sensing that the neighboring countries, including Pakistan, are suffering a lot. And one of the country is India. Pakistan's last year floods in 2022, Pakistan suffered a lot in those floods, and Pakistan not only suffered its population but also its economy, agriculture, infrastructure, and every bit of piece that is developed over the years. Pakistan's 1/3 of the land was underwater because of the torrential rains and flash floods. Now, COP28, that is the next conference of parties under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, going to be held in United Arab Emirates in Dubai, particularly from 30th of November to 12th of December this year. And for that, there are lots of hopes hanging upon the developing world particularly, and Pakistan is also gearing up for this COP, as Pakistan has presented its very strong case in the last conference of parties in Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh, where some of a fund was also established for the loss and damage. And now this COP is also important for Pakistan and the countries like Pakistan, because most of the developing world is suffering a lot because of the climatic changes and as a result of devastating disasters which are rapidly coming every year. And now the question arises that whether Pakistan is preparing for this COP in a way that Pakistan present its very strong case into the COP28. There are several questions which are unanswered, and to get answers of these questions we have today in our studios. First of all, I introduce to our guests, and Dr. Khalid Waleed, he is the senior economist and environmentalist as well. Saira Ijaz, she is the senior analyst, most welcome to you as well. And we have online Dr. Shoaib Ahmed, he is the senior environmentalist, and he will also enlighten us on the developments which are going on at the policy level as well. So Dr. Khalid, you have an ample experience when we talk about economy and environment and energy and all that. So how you can categorize Pakistan as the most vulnerable country to the climate change?
Well, you started with in your introductory remarks that we are a vulnerable country, and everybody knows that, and our emission level is very, I would say, not significant when we compare to other industrialized countries. One thing we need to understand is that there is a nexus of economy, energy, and environment. I call it as a 3E crisis of Pakistan, because in terms of economy, we are in turmoil, we are facing huge amounts of debts, our imports are increasing, our exports are declining, and at the same time there is unsustainable energy choices in Pakistan. Energy mix in Pakistan is unsustainable because we simply cannot afford to have renewable energy due to financial constraints. Third is that there is an environmental degradation, climate change crisis in Pakistan, which is due to the emissions of other industrialized countries, but it is obviously linked with the economy of Pakistan. As you have rightly mentioned, that 30 billion USDs was lost in last year's flood, which means that 30 billion USD was taken out of our economy. So economy hurts energy, and energy hurts environment, and environment in turns hurt our economy. So this is a cycle we need to break. One way to start is to bring climate financing into the fold, so that we can have modern and clean energy choices, and we can build our economy around that, and we can couple our economic growth with our environmental improvement, not the degradation. One possible way is to link our energy and environment policies into our macroeconomic policies. Another way is to link carbon markets into the fold so that our industrial decarbonization starts, and we can pledge for those climate financing that is available, which is available, by the way, in the global context.
Obviously, it's basically interconnected with each other, and the policy level decisions are also be interconnected, as you have rightly mentioned. So, Saira, what makes Pakistan more deserving country to have climate financing, climate investments inside the country? What makes it more deserving?
Because we are the most, it's the dilemma that we are the least significant emitter of carbon dioxide, and we are suffering the most. Pakistan is among the topmost 10 top most affected countries when it comes to climate change.
Definitely, the German Watch report is already there.
And it takes toll on our economy, it takes toll on our health sector, and it takes toll on our overall living conditions of the people of Pakistan.
You are talking about social protection.
Social protection as well. Let's see, in the last years, drastic flooding, 33 million people got affected by these floods, and just imagine the scale of the loss we face in terms of our agricultural losses. And number two, it has drastic impact and a long lasting impact on the overall economy of Pakistan. Still people are not able to overcome those floods. Impact of those floods. So I think the most significant thing which happened last month in October was when in the conference in on October 7th, it was decided that the climate finance will be now upgraded from billions to trillions. And when it comes to COP28, the higher most expectation from this conference, which is going to be held in the end of this month, is that which strategies and they should be adopted to make that that climate finance should be affordable and accessible to the developing countries and to the countries who are suffering the most. So I guess the real challenge lies there when the most influential and the G20's countries and the heads of the states will sit together, and they have to just formulating climate finance is not sufficient.
So,
they have to
Dr. Khalid, last COP27 that was held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt was historic in a sense that it has not only established a loss and damage fund, which was a prime concern of the developing world, and they were demanding it from the last 30 years. So when it is going to be operationalized to assist, to help, to mitigate, to adapt all those technologies and all those circumstances, particularly what the developing countries like Pakistan are facing?
That was the major success of Pakistan leading G77 group, and including China,
yes,
that loss and damage fund was established. This year's COP, I think operationalization of that loss and damage fund would be a very significant thing to watch, because we need to link and we need to provide climate financing to those, as ma'am rightly mentioned, that we need to provide climate financing to those who are deserving and who are vulnerable. But one thing to keep in mind is that the climate financing market or climate finance is a very competitive sort of thing. You need to compete with other countries. There are so many countries who are in this realm and they are vulnerable to the climate change. What Pakistan can do, Pakistan can show the world that Pakistan has the infrastructure, Pakistan has the framework, Pakistan has the macroeconomic policies linked with climate change. One very particular example that is the new initiative by the ministry. That
yes, we'll come to that one as well. But do you think that this loss and damage fund would bridge the gap which already climate financing has? Because there are lots of gaps that. When we see the RED Plus, when we see the Green Climate Fund of $100 billion, most of the funds were not materialized still, and those were all promises. Even the Paris Agreement was really, I think so, a benchmark for that, but unfortunately that was not adhered in real spirit.
Well, the basic thing to understand is that the world or global economy is linked with 3 C crises. One is the COVID, which is over by now. Second is conflict, which is on and off going on in the world, badly hurt. But the third C is the climate change, which is persistent and which is permanent in the context of world economy. So the industrialized countries, they need to understand that our global economy is linked with climate change. When there is adversities of climate change in developing world, obviously their industries would affect in terms of reduced demand, in terms of supply chain shocks. So we need to have this integrated approach where industrialized countries realize that there is a climate injustice going on and it will badly hurt that capitalist system.
Very
So
well
we
said.
need to
Very well said. According to a World Bank report, that is, Pakistan requires at least, as you have rightly mentioned, 348 billion US dollars. It's a huge amount to achieve systematic resilience to the climate change. So, do you think that it is realistic to have resilience, and how Pakistan would get it? Whether the international lenders are so cooperative, they are so generous to fund all these?
See, nobody gives you anything in plate.
Definitely.
You have to prove, you have to formulate such climate resilient policies. Professor Adil Najam very rightly mentioned that we can use these floods by formulating such climate friendly and viable strategies. Now the real challenge lies with the concerned
And the
ministry.
competitive as well.
And the competitive as well. It should be environmentally viable and economically accessible, you would say. So now the onus lies to the experts, to the policy makers here in Pakistan to build and to formulate such policies and to take solid implementation measures, so that world can see that they are only by building your case and by giving statements and by, I think it will not help Pakistan. We have to actually, how can we, what important measures we can take? We can take that there should be a government policy to introduce and to give subsidies on solar installations. Then you need to overcome, introduce smart agricultural policies and techniques and methods. Climate smart.
Your point is very important in this regard, particularly when we are talking about policy level decisions, and there is a negotiation also going on between Pakistan and International Monetary Fund, and we are having Dr. Shoaib as well. Dr. Shoaib, how do you see, particularly, is there any indicator that in future a majority of the projects and the policies are going to be green, as IMF is also stressing upon climate financing and to have more greener policies, more greener development, more greener growth in Pakistan?
Thank you very much for having me over here. As our both the experts were just commenting on your questions, and I just wanted to add one thing to Dr. Khalid's point, and then I'll coming back to the actual question. As just Dr. Khalid really said, there is a 3E issue in, it's a nexus for overcoming any issue related to the climate. I must say, we may add one more thing to this, and that is the question of governance. Because if you just look at, we do have a mechanism to talk about the international strategies and the way these international agencies are doing. But the thing is, what we are doing at our own. If you just look at the whole scenario, we are talking about the external factors, those who are causing the climate issues in Pakistan. But see what we are doing in this case. We have a poor and outdated infrastructure. We do not have any strategy to do the land reforms, our outdated agriculture management, and all other factors, the building reforms and etc. etc. We are probably the only country, those who are badly affected by the climate. It is not because of most of the external factors, but it is because of the internal governance issues. You may make policies after policies and policies, but who is going to implement these policies? My question is revolving around this. Do we have any consistency in our approach that we may be able to implement this thing from right from the beginning, and instead of picking it up from its root, we may continue with building up on its next step? This is the actual question. The question is not, we do have experts on working on policies and etc. But my question will remain the same as why international people, why the different agencies come to us and give us so much amount and, just to give us some relief. What we are doing internally, this is very important, and this needs to be understood by every
Doctor, why Pakistan is lagging behind the green growth? What's the reasons why it is so, as you have rightly mentioned about?
To be very honest, it is not because of any external factor. I'm very much, I'm saying it with my whole conviction. It is not because of any external factor. It is because of our internal issues. It is just because of our internal inconsistencies in the implementation of our policies. It is not the question of policy. We are so rich in making, we have some wonderful brains. The two brains are sitting with you, and there are so many brains in Pakistan, those who can develop anything out of the box. But when it comes to the implementation of those issues, we are absolutely nowhere when it comes to the implementation of, just go through the whole history, how many land reforms we have implemented so far. In our last program, I was talking about this real estate sector, the way this real estate sector is growing up. Is there anybody who's going to check them that they are one of the root cause of making this green land of Pakistan into a barren land?
Your point is well taken. Your point is well taken. When we are talking about implementation, as Dr. Shoaib is rightly mentioned about, do you think that after 18th Amendment into the Constitution, these climate and environmental policies are rest upon the provinces? So whether there is any difficulty in implementation of these policies by the federal government, or what's the reason? What's the reason behind?
Well, let me build on Dr. Saab's point, is that we need to have obviously a governance system linked with these climate sustainability and long-term planning.
Obviously it is.
One impediment, I would say bottleneck in Pakistan's planning is that we plan for the short term. Because of the financial,
we don't have the long-term planning and all that.
Because of the resource constraints, and we do not have that kind of liberty in terms of fiscal space.
That leverage is not available.
Yep. So we need to invest in the long-term policies. One example I would like to give here is that there is an initiative known as Just Energy Transition Partnerships, JETPs. In terms of that, South Africa has pledged to reform their energy sector. They make investment plan for 80 billion USDs, and they have received 8 billion USDs. Another example to give for Pakistan is 1 billion is our import bill monthly in terms of energy related imports. If we save 30% of it, we save about 300 million USDs. That would be 3.6 billion per year, which means by reforming our structural adjustment to the energy sector, we can save 3.6 billion per year, which is equal to the IMF program. Coming to your question, provinces has a very fundamental role to play in this planning and this governance structure, because after the 18th Amendment, many of the departments and many of the ministries have been devolved to provincial governments.
Obviously,
and
yes.
But climate change ministry is still with the federation, but the implementing arms, those have been devolved to the provinces. There should be a very, I would say, very integrated sort of planning with provincial government and federal government. I would say local governments as well, because local governments, they are the ones who would be implementing district policies.
They are the ones who are going to implement these policies at the ground zero.
Ground level.
So
yep.
that is very important. So we have Dr. Wasim Ishaq, international relation expert, with us. Dr. Saab, most welcome to Foresight. The question is that do you think that after the series of climate-induced disasters, we are moving towards climate resilient infrastructure? We have learnt already from the last several disasters, particularly the devastating floods. We have learned something and we are moving towards a resilient infrastructure overall?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I personally feel that we have learned a lot of lessons. And as we have seen in year 2022, in 1 year, in the beginning, we had very hot weather and we were facing a drought conditions. While the rest of the half of the year, we were flooded, and the floods went on to the extent that 30 million people were affected and the economic loss to the tune of 30 billion US dollars. I think we have now realized that the country is the way we have been governing in the last 75 years, we have to change our habits. And the only national security policy of Pakistan, which was issued with a consensus, has determined the human security as the vital national security interest of Pakistan. And in my perspective, the climate change has a huge impact upon human security. So therefore, now we are witnessing a synchronization in government's realization, then government policy making formulation, and also certain steps towards its execution. The recent national climate change policy is a step in the right direction. However, being an underdeveloped country, we have certain structural issues and certain governance issues which have been highlighted by our August panelists. So I would like to support then whatever they have said. However, there are certain challenges which I would like to highlight. One, absolutely uncontrolled urbanization. We have seen that the colonies and housing schemes are being built without due care to the climatic issues. Then massive deforestation. And then we have moved from water scarce, stressed country to a water scarce country. And now in coming 3 to 5 years, water is going to be the biggest national security issue for Pakistan. So our national climate change policy and the allocation of climate change fund are steps in right directions. Now the challenge is the implementation and actualization of those policies, which I'm sure with the new elected government coming in just a matter of few months, there's a great realization at the federal level as well as at the provincial levels. So I'm sure with a great synchronization, we would move towards the right direction. And at COP28, Pakistan would have a very strong case for its support from the developed countries, for which Pakistan, despite just 1% carbon emissions, is suffering because of them. So we are suffering more because of the external factors, but as well as we can't disregard the internal factors.
So, as you have rightly mentioned, is it correct that Pakistan needs to focus upon agro-food, its cities, energy, along with that agriculture, transport and national policies overall in the framework of implementation to be more resilient to the climate change and must have to be green?
Can you please repeat, because
yeah, definitely. Why not? Why not? Is it correct that, as you have rightly mentioned, is it correct that Pakistan needs to focus on agro-food, along with that cities, transport, energy, infrastructure, and particularly the policies to be green, along with the framework to be implemented that must have to be resilient to the climate change?
Of course, we have to actually move in multi-dimensionals and all those dimensions which you just have highlighted. And I'm very certain that the national climate change policy, which has just been prepared and issued, has actually focused on all these areas. But certainly there are certain limitations at the federal level because we are going through the election process. While the document is now ready, problem will be at the implementation part. So therefore, as I say that on optimistic note, when we have the elected government in place in federal level and as well as in the promises, just a matter of about 3 to 4 months, we will see this climate change would be taken as a esteemed national priority. And I'm sure the way we have now come together towards the realization of this climate change as our national security risk, so therefore, all the risk mitigation measures would be implemented wholeheartedly.
Definitely, and your point is very well elaborated. Saira, if we are talking about the climatic changes, Pakistan's vulnerability, Dr. Saab has just mentioned, Dr. Wasim, that National Climate Change Policy that was devised some year earlier. So do you think that it is implemented in letter and spirit across Pakistan?
So far we have not seen much about it, but I am quite hopeful, because as time changes and this we are in a climate emergency situation, things are going to be in settle, I hope at least, but again the main point comes to the governance and the climate friendly strategies and policies, and we have to prove. Again, Pakistan has to reach to the level of acquiring 60% of converting to renewable energy. We have to focus and the usage of electric vehicles by 2030 to 30%. To reach this 5 to 6 years target, we have to start implementing it. Government has to provide some subsidies on solar installations and has to provide some, introduce some mass level transit projects all across big cities if it really wants to, convince the world. And
means the policies are there, or the policy implementation is needed. That is badly needed.
It should be
so
started
when we are
now.
talking about policies, Dr. Khalid, it is important to mention that Ministry of Planning and Development just unveiled a national climate finance strategy. Along with that, a sustainable finance bureau as well that is going to be established as well. So in light of COP28, along with that, the implementation of all these policies, a new strategy is devised already. So how it would be helpful for the COP as well, and how it would be helpful for implementation of all these policies?
Well, Pakistan's case rests on operationalization of climate financing, how we are going to introduce this framework for the climate financing to be, I would say, spent in the country. Two aspect of that is that first is public side, public expenditure, second is the private expenditures. In terms of public expenditures, this Sustainable Financial Bureau, it has a framework known as Public Investment Management Assessment. It is linked with now climate, and it is now climate public investment management assessment, which means that we would be converting our total PSDP, public sector development program projects. Of 20% of those projects would be green projects, which means that this will bring green revolution in Pakistan in terms of green practices, in terms of green businesses, in terms of, I would say, private sector coming into this realm of sustainability practices and sustainability investments. So we need to link our public investments, public expenditures towards this green initiative, as well as we need to attract more and more private sector within Pakistan.
There is a very important example that there was once an e-government system was evolved and started, and it was very much implemented in some of the areas, but unfortunately that was not implemented as a whole. So still we have seen that lot of paperwork is going on, and there is no usage of the emails or something like that. The electronic systems are abundant. So how do you see, because that is very important when we have to protect our forests and the forest cover?
Well, another unique aspect, or I would say very important aspect, is the inclusion part. Not only inclusion in terms of socio-economic development, in terms of technology and other these state-of-the-art facilities as well. We need to provide our vulnerable community or indigenous population, which is directly connected and directly affected with the floods and other climate change disasters. We need to provide them with these kind of facilities so that they are more connected with the country, and there is no inequality in terms of climate change within Pakistan as well. So we need to take care of that as well, bringing more financial and technological inclusiveness to them will help us devising more and more inclusive policies in terms of addressing this climate change.
These are the areas which the state and the government has to take care of, and there are lots of other responsibilities as well, and one of it is, Saira, if you elaborate on that, that how much it is important to train our human resource, human capital, to be more resilient to the climate change, how we can give them more education on that, because that is very important to prepare all these people to adapt all these technologies, as well as the atmosphere which is going on and the environment which is changing, the climatic changes. So how do you see it?
Spot on. You know, you have very, very important thing. Two factors are very important and two pillars are very important. When it is all about awareness, and who will bring the awareness? Media. First of all, I will think that government should engage media as much as it can to bring awareness at mass level, at root, grassroots level. Then comes the role of academia. Then comes the role of, in employment, the universities, even I would say that at schools level, at a very junior academic level, we need to, educate our children that what is climate change, what is the importance of sustainability, what is environment. Even our young kids should know about it, that water shortage is a big human problem. They should avoid water wastage, because that's how a mindset of a society grows and builds. Until unless we don't, do awareness campaigns on massive level by using media in all forms, in all, forums, and by engaging our academia, our media. I think these two tools are very important.
Well said, Sarah. Well said. We have Dr. Wasim. Dr. Wasim, how do you see, as Sarah mentioned, that human resource capital is very important to train, to give them awareness? As we just give an example that right now the central Punjab is in the grip of smog, worst kind of smog, and that is because of the transboundary pollution and all that. So that is the prime part of the climatic changes, as most of the carbon, sulfur and nitrogen are there in the atmosphere, and the people are just inhaling it, and they are suffering because of lots of diseases as well. So how we can prepare our population? This country belongs to 240 million people. How we can go to them, how we can train them and be resilient to the climatic changes?
I totally agree with our honorable panelists. The biggest challenge for us is that we have to take measures. There are certain active measures and there are certain passive measures. And also the role of media is very important, as just highlighted. Our biggest concern has been that we were actually not mindful of this climate change. But now we have reached to a level where we are now actually witnessing a climate emergency. And unless we now take strong steps, and I would suggest in two lines that we need to evolve a whole of government approach and whole of nation approach. As we have faced a lot of crises in our past, and as one nation we have faced and we have come out very successfully. So therefore, for this climate emergency now, we have to adopt the same strategy. Through media, we have to bring in awareness. Through academia, we have been writing several articles. I myself have published about 5 articles in international peer-reviewed journals on this climate change and water crisis in Pakistan. Then water, which is actually we have reached now to a level of water scarcity and going to be a biggest national security challenge in coming 2 to 5 years. So how to actually educate people how to conserve water. So we need to have conservation resources and also then conservation in terms of its usage. We have seen our agriculture, about 30% of Pakistan's GDP through agriculture, but we have been so lavishly expanding our freshwater resources on agriculture. Why not to adopt to a smart technologies, etc. Then energy generation. Why not to actually go for the solar power, wind power and other sources of energy rather than burning fuel and burning coal every time. And let me also give you 2 examples. One from Beijing. Just about 7 years ago, Beijing skies were just like the European skies of 17th century Industrial Revolution. But just in a matter of 6 to 7 years, China has controlled its pollution to a large extent, and Beijing skies today are as blue as the European skies. So we need to adopt the similar strategy. And it has to be a multi-pronged strategy through a whole of government and a whole of nation approach. And I'm very optimistic that we will be able to meet those challenges and face those challenges in a very amicable manner, provided we decide today as a government and as a nation that we have to get rid of this upcoming disaster which is looming around the corner.
So, Doctor, what are going to be the bullet points that you suggest that government must have to do it, and along with that, what are the expectations from the COP28, particularly for the developing world, as Pakistan is suffering from these all disasters?
Immediately ban on the carbon emissions which are actually not as per the international standard. I think we have seen Lahore and most of Punjab in last few weeks, and this is going to continue for the whole of winter season, and that is actually spreading to other parts of the country as well. While we may say it is coming from across the boundary, but we have to take certain measures to stop it even from coming from across the boundary. But internally, we have to take these immediate measures. For the energy production, we have to devise the alternate sources of energy, and those energy inefficient production units must be closed forthwith. And also, let me highlight the water conservation strategy. This has to be evolved as a national emergency. We need to do it because just in a matter of 4 to 5 years, Pakistan would be having a huge water shortage. That is going to affect our agriculture product, which is contributing around 30% to our GDP. That means we'll be deprived of this 30% GDP contribution, as well as it is as the maximum job employment is through this agriculture sector. So that would be actually increasing the poverty as well as reducing the people from that job market. So these are few measures which I suggest to be done as an emergency.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wasim, for your candid views on today's very important topic, and thank you very much to Saira, you have contributed a lot, and Dr. Khalid for your presence as well, and we are thankful to Dr. Shoaib as well for his presence. As our panelists suggested, it is very important that there are lots of hopes hinging upon the COP28 to be held in United Arab Emirates in Dubai, but along with that, when we are talking about loss and damage fund, its operationalization is very important for the developing countries like Pakistan, but it is important that at the national level, whole of the government and whole of the nation approach is needed to have to cater all these climatic changes, and the best possible solution is the adaptation and mitigation, and we have to align our policies along with our actions with implementation at the green level so that we can attain the best climate for our future generations. It is very important, but along with these climatic changes and creating lots of conflicts, creating lots of disasters, creating lots of hindrance to the national security as well, and it is going to be a non-traditional threat, but it is a threat to the national security as well. We have to take it at the national level, at the state level. Along with that, when we are talking about climate change, there is another aspect which is very important, and that is rising conflicts across the globe, and one of the conflict, and that is erupted in the Middle East as Palestinians are suffering. Unfortunately, the brutal bombing by the Israeli occupation forces are still going on, and Israel is not stoppable despite of lots of efforts by the Organization of Islamic Countries. Along with that, we have seen United Nations Secretary General pleading for peace and halt of war, ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Today, also lots of international leaders, including the Chinese President Xi Jinping and the US President Joe Biden, also said that only the two-state solution is the real-time solution for the Middle East crisis. One is that there must have to be a Palestinian, independent Palestinian state, and most of the countries, including Pakistan, pleading for that, and Pakistan has a long-trodden stance, long-lasting stance, and that is very important to mention, that Pakistan wants it and Islamic world wants it, that there must have to be an independent, viable Palestinian state within the Middle East with its capital Al-Quds al-Sharif. Along with that, must have to be aligned with the pre-1967 borders, and today what is happening in Gaza is unfortunately is a brutal humanitarian collapse. It's the collapse of the international order, it's the collapse of the international law as well, and world must have to take it account as Israel is committing war crimes. Palestinians must have to give space, Gaza people must have to give the humanitarian aid, assistance, humanitarian corridors must get open to have to assistance must have to reach to all those injured and all those people who need badly the food, water, and all these things. So whole of the world is with the Palestinians right now who are suffering in Gaza. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz Nasir.